So after returning from goblin slaying, Goblin Slayer brought home a brat from the guild, but since he doesn't have a place of his own, he gotta ask permission from Opie. Opie was cool, Brat was horny, so Goblin Slayer brought him to the shack where they spent the night together. By that I meant the brat taking the bed while Goblin Slayer slept sitting in a corner. That said, Brat didn't get along with the team. As a matter of fact, he didn't get along with anyone in the guild. So to prove himself, Brat joined the party for some goblin slaying. Squad was doing fine until Brat triggered a trap, started screaming, and ran into an obvious trap room. His failure to remain calm caused him to waste his one and only fireball chance on a goblin scrub. Points to him for wanting to save the girl, but why the fucking rush? At this point, the girl was probably violated a few hundred times by now. Him rushing into the trap could potentially risk the two untainted girls in his party to the same violation. Glad the team was able to unfuck the problem. So the veteran adventurers are training the newbies to increase their survivability rate. Some were enjoying the teaching more than they should. After a day of torment, all the newbies are wasted at this point, Brad included. That's why he's now staring at some titties to heal himself. Fucking degenerate. The veterans went to grab some drinks at a local pub. Didn't forget to admire Horse Girl's ass while they're at it. Another fucking degenerate. They then proceeds to talk about their dreams by the bridge under the moon. Meanwhile, their camp got raided. So the veterans regroup and strike back on the goblins. Combat-wise, the goblins were demolished in a one-sided annihilation. But since they did have a goblin shaman leading them, a little cunningness is to be expected. The goblins actually had a secondary squad targeting the newbies on their way home. Fortunately, Priest Girl expected the ambush and brought her team of novice adventurers to counteract against them. Her leadership skills was acknowledged by the guild and they gave her a rank up. Brat and his girlfriend set out on a journey with the aim of becoming a dragon slayer. So Elf Girl received a letter inviting her to her sister's marriage. But before their vacation, the usual goblin slaying routine first. After their extermination, they found some violated nuns in the basement. After saving them, Priest Girl gave them a purification to cleanses their body from the goblin's filth, but they still mentally scarred. Has a feast that night, did some shopping and heads off to Elf Girl's village on a raft. They also invited Opie and the guild receptionist to join them on this happy occasion. That was until their raft got ambushed. So Priest Girl focused on defense, Goblin Slayer and Elf Girl focused on offense, Dwarf and Lizard focused on the escape maneuvers, changed into their swimsuits afterwards because they got wet while escaping from the ambush earlier. Unnecessary fan service that I want more of. I'm a fucking degenerate too. Met up with Elf Girl's brother-in-law halfway, tricked him into entering the girl's sleeping tent, and he was punished for showing us this scene. Shortly after they reached the village was attacked by an elephant. Rawr. So Elephant was controlled by a goblin rider and that gave protagonist a reason to act. Elf Girl's shot was accurate as ever, even when she drew the bow with her mouth while Lizard and Dwarf inflict some status ailments on the elephant for Goblin Slayer to lassoed on it. After the successful catch, all the men went for a bachelor's party before Elf Bro enters a life of commitment. The next day, they head out to a nearby goblin nest, where they face some ambush, but managed to overcome it. Also came across quite some elf corpses being hung on display near the nest. So the goblins were on the roof having a gathering, hosted by a goblin shaman, until they were raided by the protagonist team. They fought with the goblins a little, then jumps off the roof. Too much of a pain to kill them one by one. So Goblin Slayer decides to flush them all down in one swoop. Creative as ever, brutal as ever, and that's the wedding gift the squad has prepped for the newlyweds. Unorthodox, but didn't fail to put a smile on their faces. We then catch a glimpse of the combat prowess of the current hero squad. Felt like a different anime here. So start of the episode we were shown how the Sword Maiden and her party used to roll back in their days. Similar to the current hero squad, their combat system almost looked like it was from a different anime. Closer to the ones we're more used to, more fantasy-like, less logic and realism involved. Whereas back to the protagonist's point of view, we can see their struggle, almost seem doable if we're in the anime ourselves. Anyway, Sword Maiden hired them to act as her escort, and while en route to their destination, they were attacked by a horde of goblins. So upon reaching their destination, the men went to grab some grub, while the girls went to the bathhouse. Though I enjoy the fan service, but I would prefer if they had more goblins raping scenes. Moving on, Priest Girl had her clothes stolen by the princess who snuck out for a little adventure. Shortly after she left the city, she was attacked by some goblins and was then kidnapped, just as her brother, the king, was having a headache. The Goblin Slayer came, Sword Maiden also came. So the squad followed the trails of the goblins into their nest. The goblins welcomed them fiercely and violently. After some quick exchange, Goblin Slayer lost his chill. He took out a scroll and started sucking those goblins into the teleportation circle. When they found the princess, glad to see she was not violated, the goblins intend to use her as a sacrifice instead. Priest Girl used her purification on their magic circle, and that fucked up their ritual. Goblin Slayer then ended this farce with a kick in the nuts. So Goblin Priest survived the nut crack and summoned a greater demon's hand. Goblin Slayer flung it into the elevator shaft. By using the upcoming elevator and Priest Girl's protection barrier, they mushed that hand, just as the squad was in a pinch. And bam! Goblin Slayer's waifu has come to the rescue. She even brought her entire entourage. The mastermind behind the kidnap of the princess was a noble, seeking to usurp the throne. But the king got to him first. But all these have nothing to do with our protagonist, as he goes home to play with Opie.